Hello everybody, I'm VC. Cataclysm, the last generation, has a new patch as of 9.8. Let's read the notes. Refactored pulping. It now properly assesses the total damage of a weapon and weighs its damage types by ratio. Pulping pulping heavily favors bashing weapons and benefits from strength and survival skill. And generally, it should take a bit longer than it did previously, though pulp times are highly random due to how the system is currently set up. Please note that the pulping changes are still under review and feedback is appreciated. It is meant to be an onerous task and one that you are tempted to gamble on skipping in order to get more kills or do more work in a day, not something that makes it impossible to clear a building without taking several naps. Corrected several issues with pulping where it was not properly checking weariness or draining stamina. This is likely the biggest part of the change. If you get too weary, consider that you may not want to go on pulping, as it will start to take an extremely long time and wear you down even more. Huge zombies are now slightly easier to pulp. Pulp times were derived from creature volume, and the square cube law meant that the numbers got ridiculous very fast. Removed the Truth Teller and Fast Learner traits. Truth Teller didn't do anything interesting, and Fast Learner was both far too good and devalued the intelligence stat. Added the Guileless trait at character gen. Guileless largely replaces Truth Teller, but with expanded functionality that made it worth making a new trait instead of fixing the old one. Guileless reduces your ability to lie and intimidate, and also makes you get worse barter prices, both as a buyer and a seller. It reduces the degree to which all NPCs fear you, and will make NPCs who are not altruistic value you less. Skilled liar is now just liar. It provides the same bonus to lying, a minor penalty to persuasion, and gets you better deals when trading. Sufficiently aggressive and/or perceptive NPCs may also see through your act and trust you less when you first meet. Similarly, sufficiently perceptive, intelligent, and/or aggressive NPCs may spot that you're a psychopath and will be less trusting and/or more afraid of you. Terrifying and Sapiovore no longer stack for the purpose of initial impressions on NPC fear. You can now disable tiles in the options again without the game crashing on you. Fixed a random typo. Blackhawk, Medevac, double, and single-seater helicopters are now way more fuel efficient. The Apache and Osprey haven't been seen to yet, but that will happen. And there's a lot of helicopters. A lot of stores were selling bows, crossbows, and arrows, but not bolts. Now these places will mostly have about a 20% chance for bolts to spawn in any spot arrows normally would. Removed several harmless, pointless, outdated, badly implemented enemies, including the Eldritch Stomper, Krek, and Albino Penguin. You may see some harmless errors about these monsters if you are continuing an old save. These can be ignored. I fear the Krek may be missed by some, but we already have many dog-type enemies, and even at least 2 extra-dimensional dogs. The Krek did basically no damage and served no purpose except to render the otherworldly mundane. Well, I don't know. I was scared to death of Kreks for a few weeks, so they did serve the purpose of terrifying me about whether I should go into combat with them or not. But yeah, once you learn that the Krek is pretty harmless, it's no big deal. Laminated glass is no longer indestructible. Reinforced glass has been named to wired glass to clarify that the wire is not really reinforcing it. Oh, laminated glass is no longer indestructible. That's a biggie, actually. Reinforced glass has been renamed. It's just a very outdated way to keep from getting glass shards all over the place when it breaks. The durability of regular glass doors and walls has slightly increased. Now that'll help a little bit in the labs. Those flimsy doors and stuff. As a matter of fact, I was in a lab the other day and a zombie brute threw me right through the glass wall. Refactored throwing EXP gain to bring it in line with other combat skills. I hate to see this one. After discovering that it had been potentially awarding 60 times as much EXP as firing a gun. Throw EXP is bonused by distance of the throw, enemy dodge skill, and enemy size, smaller being better, As with melee, you cannot train the skill on enemies who are too weak for your skill level. This last bit may need some review, as it may be too much of a hassle to train if most enemies have very poor dodge skill. Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, hopefully we can still do practice training on that. But yeah, running around throwing pebbles at birds all day to get my throwing skill up just so I can hurl a Molotov would kind of suck. Generators are now more realistic and reasonable, with clearer descriptions and better components. Generators can now be operated without wielding them. Removed most references to black goo from zombie descriptions. Many years ago, the lore stated that zombies were covered in blob gunk. This was retconned in DDA years ago and was never true here. If there's black gunk on them, it's just gore, but many players didn't get the memo and were assuming their characters could see what was happening with the blob revivifying them. To clear up the confusion, it's best to just change the descriptions, as no character is supposed to have any idea what's going on. Made several adjustments to melee weapons. The Halligan bar is slightly weaker but lighter, and with more stab damage. The crowbar is now smaller and lighter. Tool axes now do more bash and less cut damage. The punch dagger does less stab, but now has some bash damage, and the butterfly sword is now properly in line with other swords of its general weight and size. Reduce the number of alcohol wipes, adhesive bandages, tampons, and menstrual pads that can come in a box. Renamed adhesive gauze bandage to adhesive gauze patch to clarify that it's a bigger bandage. Added the makeshift gauze patch and an auto-learned recipe for it. It uses cloth patches or toilet paper, so it's quite economical. Oh, okay. Don't forget to grab your toilet paper then. Makeshift gauze patch. Nice. Updated the recipe for bandages. They no longer require tape and can now be made out of makeshift bandages. Well, that's interesting. I'll have to look that recipe up. Added a recipe for adhesive gauze patches that doesn't use tape. The faction camp distribute food job now lets you know the rough status of your food store's vitamin and toxin levels. I also fixed a few bugs in this system and changed the language in the distribute food job to properly explain what the heck it even does in plain English. There's some minor changes here. Fixed a crash when reading map, caches off of e-devices. Fixed a bug where e-devices were displaying their contents prior to browsing them. Fixed several minor bugs with e-devices. User Abexis pitched in to remove a few solid gold instruments that were spawning in music stores, as well as to prevent the Tommy gun from spawning there. Relics are now wearable. I like that change. Fletching now requires far less material. Corey at NECC will now properly explain what she needs for her solar panel quest. Removed the workbench with recharger, an outdated item that never worked properly to begin with. I'll say, I tried to work with that thing in one of my long series in DDA, and I could never get that thing to do what it should do. Stopped the game from trying to load invalid map extras, which should silence some erroneous warnings. Fixed a crash caused by trying to put a grappled creature into a livestock carrier or pet carrier. Well, that's a damn good idea. Hadn't thought of that. So you could now grapple a cow and then grapple that cow into a livestock carrier? Is that the case? I need to look up these recipes. Fixed a crash caused by random NPCs, sometimes being assigned scenario-specific EOCs. Trying to construct an NPC faction turf will not make them angry until you confirm. Renamed several fungal zombies to have more straightforward and descriptive names. Removed fast healer from reptilian and made slow healer properly lead to reptilian regeneration. Backported thousands of lines of infrastructural updates from DDA. These are mostly not going to affect gameplay at all. Refactored shotgun pellets. They should behave a lot more reasonably without being any less effective. Added a message for trying to hack an unhackable card reader. Optimized zone sorting. Refactored ammo effect bounce, which isn't used too much in the base game, but may help with mods. Optimized zone sorting, really. Alright, so those are the patch notes for 9.8, and I have an episode coming out either tonight or tomorrow, which is pre-patch. So, in the episode that comes out later this week, I'll look into some of these changes from the patch. So, there you go. Now you know more about what's going on in the last generation.